I like it when plugins are simple and then just leave me enough room to be able to be flexible, yet creative. Kind of like a beat making gymnast. Hey, what up y'all? Mr. Cruz here, your friendly neighborhood producer, back with another video. And in today's video, we are taking a look at Arturia's Chorus Jun-6. Now, contrary to what you might think, Chorus Jun-6 isn't a date for a choir practice or a choir recital. Chorus Jun-6 is the name of Arturia's chorus plugin. It's a plugin that is modeled after the Roland Juno 60, I believe that's what it's called. But it was an old school piece of hardware, which we know is super common and super popular. We're trying to take the old, bring it in with the new, add a little bit of spice, add a little bit of sazon and adobo, and bam, get you something nice. So with this, we have Chorus Jun-6. Now, actually, I did a tutorial about a plugin that is very similar to this, which we'll kind of talk about later, but it was FL stock version of this exact model of the Roland Juno 60 and their interpretation of it. But today we're going to take a look at Arturia's interpretation of it and see how it stacks up. But before all of that, let's get into what all of these buttons do. I love this plugin because it's very, very simple. There's not a lot of things in here to complicate it. There's not a lot of things to throw me off. I like it when plugins are simple and then just leave me enough room to be able to be flexible, yet creative. Kind of like a beat making gymnast. For starters, we have our on and off switch. So this kind of functions as like a bypass. So if you're in FL, you already know that you have that button up here. But we also have the mono in. I'm actually going to talk about that last because it is an interesting aspect to have with the Chorus Jun-6. Down here, we have two modes. We have mode 1, mode 2, and mode manual. With these, actually, this kind of functions in the exact same way that the original Roland Juno 60 did, which is you had two presets essentially with that old hardware. You had one. Now you'll notice when I select one, none of the things that I have here are actually going to impact the sound. This is functioning like a preset. When I select two, the exact same thing happened. It has its own parameters built in and integrated inside of it. You can't do nothing about it. When I select manual, then all of these faders right here will actually have an impact on the sound. But here's an interesting thing about the original Roland Juno 60 is that even though they had two buttons, essentially two presets, the original engineers omitted the idea that people would press both buttons at the same time and then kind of end up with a third preset. So that's what this button down here does. When you select this one, both of those are enabled just like they were in the original Roland Juno 60. And then you kind of get a third preset, which once again, once these two are selected, nothing that you do here is going to matter. And then of course you have manual, and then wow, finally we get to the point where I can do something. This is where you can actually move things around and you can change and add your own little flair and style and customize the sound however you want. For rate, obviously rate has to do with how fast the chorus effect is going to be taken into effect. If you click this button right here, what this is going to do is this is going to enable our resolution. So you'll notice that instead of going in hertz, right, with our rate, it'll now turn to you know, 1 dotted, 2 triplets, 1/4, and all this other stuff. So all the typical resolutions that your DAW has. Depth lets you know how much chorus effect is actually going to be taking place. And then phase, let me explain what phase is. Phase is when you take two audio signals and if you layer them on top of each other, you end up with something that's called phase. This only happens when they're layered on top of each other exactly. Now, if you move one just a smidge, you'll get a different kind of effect. So it'll turn out to be spacey, but not that kind of spacey. So when you're adjusting the phase, what you're essentially doing is you're kind of moving this second audio signal that is causing the delay forward or backwards, or pretty much how out of line is it gonna be. And then we get the mix knob. Pretty boring because every single plugin has it. Now, on top of those things on the interface, we also have our menu in here, which allows you to add and import and all these other things with presets, where you can also resize the window. Let me say this. I was working on a beat with a friend one time on his computer, and I resized the window of the plugin that he was using. And it's a very, very popular plugin, albeit ridiculously expensive, Omnisphere. But he didn't know that you could do that. If you are not aware that you can do that with your plugins, like, yo, tighten up, fam. What you doing? You can resize the window. It offers you links to tutorials. And then this is something that I extremely love, that not a lot of plugins I'm seeing have it, but I'm glad that Arturia is including this in their plugins, is having the manual accessible from the plugin. All right, and then down here we have our bypass, our undo and redo button. And then we also have the history of whatever we did in our plugin. But that's not all that you guys are here for. You guys want to see me take this on a test drive, so let's go ahead and get into it. So right now I have an EQ, I have saturation, and then I have the Chorus Jun-6, and then finally I'm rounding it all out through Ozone Imager 2. I'm actually going to bypass Ozone Imager 2 because I don't want you guys to hear that. I just want you guys to get more of a sense of what the chorus is doing, because the chorus is going to give it a more stereo effect. So let's take a listen to this quick beat. More specifically, we're going to be listening to the synth strings, because that's where we're going to be applying our Chorus Jun-6. All right, let's listen. Beautiful, beautiful and haunting. I love it. So let's go ahead and get our mixer open, and let's open Chorus Juno-6. Y'all don't know how many times I've messed up that name. I'm gonna go ahead and solo that so that we can kind of only hear the string, so we can really get a clear understanding of what the Chorus Juno-6 is doing. I did it again. Let's start out by listening to the first two presets, then the third preset, and then we'll dig into the manual stuff. All right, so out of those, I really like the first one. I feel like this third one, when they're both combined, that it gives it a little bit more of a warmer texture. Not that big a fan of it specifically with this strings, but I do like how it does really bring in a lot of like warmth, almost kind of like a saturation. Let's go ahead and play the whole beat, and then I'm gonna just cycle through some of these presets, and we're gonna take a listen to what kind of comes built into the Chorus Jun-6. Got it right that time. I mean, just those few presets, I really like what I'm hearing. Regardless of what you think, plugins should come with a bunch of presets to help the creators get a jump start on their creativity. Obviously, this one comes with plenty to help you get started. And on top of that, you can also save your own, which is also great. But 9 times out of 10, I'm really trying to create things quickly. So a preset that already has me like 90% of the way there is really going to be helpful. So good looking out. Now, I did say that I was going to talk about the mono in switch. So the mono in switch, essentially what a chorus does is, a chorus is a delay. It's just a very short delay, almost an indistinguishable delay. That's what gives a lot of instruments and a lot of sounds the chorusy kind of effect. Now, technically, you can take a mono signal, and because a chorus is creating a delay, that delay is going to be, that mono signal is going to be split into 2 different delays. And when they're both kind of pan opposite directions, you will turn that mono signal into a stereo sound. That's essentially what you can do when you have this mono in switch. So I'll turn it on and off so you can kind of get a sense. Because my signal is already in stereo, when I hit the mono switch, that chorus effect is not going to be able to stereoize it as much as a stereo signal is already stereoized. Yo, that was like audio engineering inception right there. So you are going to hear a sound that is far more narrow than mono, but not as wide as the original stereo sound, if that makes sense. All right, let's check it out. Again, for whatever creative application you want to use that for, that is there. And if you ever throw this on a mixer that already has a mono signal, that switch is just going to completely disappear because it's not going to make a difference. That being said, the big kicker is the fact that FL Studio recently already got a vintage chorus, which is modeled after the exact same piece of hardware. And look, as you look at it side by side, it almost looks the exact same, right? It's just kind of a little bit of a different interface, but it almost looks the exact same. I'm going to keep it a buck. Out of these two, which one would you use, or which one is better? Mr. Cruz, you got to help me make a decision here. Am I going to stick with using FL's vintage chorus, or am I going to go ahead and cop the Chorus Jun-6? Let me know. Personally, I like the presets that are in the Chorus Jun-6. Like I said, presets help me get so much done so much quicker, and I would rather rely on a plugin that has a lot of presets that's going to help me do that. Not to say that the vintage chorus doesn't already have a ton of presets, because it really does. However, if you are an FL Studio user, because I know a lot of you guys like to be stuck in the past and y'all don't like to update your DAWs, if you're looking for a chorus, bam, the Chorus Jun-6, probably the last chorus that you will ever need. If you're already an FL user and you have the vintage chorus, I can't honestly say that I have a valid enough argument for you to ignore the tools that FL is giving you already in lieu of switching over to a Chorus Jun-6 or in buying a Chorus Jun-6. Because I mean, it's not a cheap plugin. However, this is included in the Arturia effects collection too. I'm definitely going to stick with it. If you're not an FL user and you don't already have the vintage chorus, I would undoubtedly put the Chorus Jun-6 up against any chorus that is in your collection right now, and I promise you the Chorus Jun-6 will smash it and blow it out of the water. Well, that's what I got for you guys. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think, and if you feel like you've learned something, make sure you hit that like button. If you're interested in checking out the video that I did about the vintage chorus and giving you a little overview, go ahead and click the video that is right here. I'm going to try to do this as best as possible. Outside of that, it's your boy Mr. Cruz, out.